Hare Krishna.
So we already introduced you, so you can go ahead and get started with your talk. We're so grateful to have you here, Saradiya.
All right, so thank you everyone for being here together. I feel very privileged to be back as Urban Devi for another session. And today we're going to look at an archetype which I find very fascinating. And the session of this title is called The Witch and the Wise Woman. And we're going to be exploring this archetype through the story of Putana. So for those of us that have read the Krishna book, we might be familiar with the story of Putana. But for those who haven't read the Krishna book, it might be the first time that we hear about Putana. So I'm going to narrate the story of Putana. So the story of Putana takes place in Vrindavan when Krishna is a very young baby. We know that during the time that Krishna was a young baby, it was actually socially, even politically, we can say a very tense situation, because Krishna's uncle, Kamsa, wanted to kill Krishna because he had heard that he would be killed by Krishna. So Kamsa was living in great fear of Krishna, but he did not have the courage to actually come and try and kill Krishna himself. So Kamsa was arranging for different demons to come to Vrindavan and to kill Krishna. Now, the first of these demons that Kamsa sent to kill little baby Krishna was this personality called Putana. Now, what is very interesting about Putana is that she is a lady. So the first person that Kamsa sent to kill Krishna is this lady Putana, and her name has got many different meanings depending on how you analyze the Sanskrit name. But one of the meanings is putrefaction. So that is quite I think a bit of a gruesome term, because that is the fifth stage of death, when a body starts decomposing, or the decomposing of matter. So when we hear that name, we already can know that this was quite a dark character. It is said that she was called upon Kamsa to go and kill Krishna because she practiced the black arts. She was very skilled in black magic, specifically the art of killing young, innocent babies. It's also said that she was a Kichari, which is very fascinating because it's said that Kicharis were witches who would uproot trees and then would use them to fly around, which of course ties very in well with the Western or the European idea of witches who could fly around on, broomsticks. So we see a similar theme there. And another thing that's very important about Putana is she was a shapeshifter. So she could change her form, which is a theme we often see with demons. They're very deceptive. And for a certain purpose, they might take on a certain form. So she was called about Kamsa for the specific task to go to Vrindavan and to kill the little baby Krishna. So she decided to go to Vrindavan, and because she was this witch and she had this flying ability, it is said that she just very, very quickly flew to Vrindavan and then she appeared. Now in Vrindavan, Krishna was a very young baby. He was only a couple of weeks, even maybe a couple of days old. So we would think that, in such situation, the parents would be very protective. Like if we have a child, a newborn child, we would be very selective of who we would allow, to see the child, never mind hold the child. But Putana arrived in Vrindavan, and when she arrived in Vrindavan, she used the shape-shifting abilities to completely transform her appearance. So she did not look like the witch that she was, but she assumed the form of a very beautiful woman. It is said that she was so beautiful that the residents of Vrindavan were all charmed and in awe. They actually thought that when they saw her, that she was a goddess, possibly even the goddess of fortune. So when she arrived in Vrindavan, she immediately made her way to the home of Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, who are Krishna's parents. It said that when they saw her, it's almost that they went into a trance. They were transfixed with her beauty. So they saw her, they didn't even really spoke to her. When they saw her coming towards their home, they immediately felt that, she was a goddess and she just wanted to come and see their beautiful baby Krishna to bestow blessings upon him. So they basically opened up the door of their home for her, and they just allowed Putana to enter their home and to go straight to baby Krishna. Now, Putana was walking in a very enchanting way. Everyone was transfixed. She walked right up to little baby Krishna, who was very innocently sleeping. And it is said that when she came to Krishna and she was like, bowing over him, looking into his grip, Krishna closed his eyes. Now, this is very interesting. Why did Krishna close his eyes? And there's a couple of explanations given. The one explanation given is that Krishna closed his eyes because he could see through the mask. He could see that she was actually a witch, and Krishna was aware that she had been killing many, many babies. So Krishna did not actually want to see her. So he closed his eyes, when he was confronted of her. But another explanation is also given that Krishna closed his eyes because Krishna, again being all-knowing, knew that Kamsa had sent her. He knew what her mission was. And Krishna also knew that he had to kill her because she was a demon and she had evil intentions, and he had to purify those evil intentions. But she was also a woman. And the thought of killing a woman was very disturbing to Krishna. So therefore he closed his eyes, because he wasn't happy about what he wanted, what he needed to face. Another very interesting explanation which is given is that although Putana was evil and her heart had become very darkened, and although she was on this mission to kill Krishna, the moment she saw Krishna, because Krishna is the sweetest of all sweet children, he's the most charming. He just captures any parent that looks at him and then creates a desire within that parent's heart just to have him as their own child. So the moment that Putana saw Krishna, she actually felt love for him. She felt affection for him. And there was also a moment where she realized that he is the supreme being. He is all powerful. And there is no way that I could actually kill him. And because there was this moment, Krishna knew that if he kept his eyes open and he stared right in the face of Putana, she would hesitate. She would not be able to go through, and execute her plan. So therefore, Krishna closed his eyes and he acted like she was just another nurse or his mother. So then what is very interesting, what happens next is Putana decides she's going to pick up Krishna. Now, Yashoda Mata, who is Krishna's mother, and Rohini, which is Krishna's, I can say, second mother, they are present, but they're so charmed that they don't actually stop Putana. They just let her be. She picks up baby Krishna, and it is said that at that moment, when Putana picks acting as she's very affectionately, Krishna actually accepts her as the mother because of motherly act. Then Putana decides she's going to offer Krishna her breast, but her plan was that she smeared poison on her breast. So her plan was that when she pretends to feed Krishna her breast milk, when she pretends to, give this most like maternal act of affection, actually she will kill him. Krishna, however, accepts her breast and he starts sucking at her breast. But Krishna, being Krishna, the most powerful, even though he's in the form of a little innocent baby, he does not only suck out the breast milk, but he starts sucking out her life air, which is very intense. I don't know if anyone has seen maybe an animal or a being dying in a very painful condition. When a being realizes it's going to die and there's a lot of pain involved, there's a lot of anxiety, there might be even very grotesque sounds coming from the being's body. And it was the same with Putana. It's immensely painful experience, Krishna sucking out life air from her breast. So Putana starts yelling and shouting, and she cannot maintain this beautiful form that she had transformed into. She starts manifesting a very grotesque witch-like form, and she starts running out of not only the house of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, but running out of Raj. She runs out of Raj, and as Krishna is sucking her life air, she keeps on expanding into her witch form. And it says that Krishna decides he wants to take her all the way out of Vrindavan so that when she falls, she won't actually injure anyone. So Krishna takes her all the way out of Vrindavan. She falls down and he sucks out her life air and she leaves her body. And now there is this huge, it says like a couple of miles, like 24 miles size witch lying outside of Vrindavan. Of course, Krishna's parents, Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, Rohini, they're all terrified out of their minds. They've just seen little Krishna, the innocent child. You can imagine your innocent child, it's only a couple of days old, maximum maybe a week old, and now you have allowed a stranger to come into your home, you've allowed the stranger to pick up your child, and now they've kidnapped your child. I mean, you would be horrified. So they're absolutely horrified. They run out, to find Krishna, because also in their mind, Krishna needs them. Krishna needs to be protected by them. But just the body of Putana, there is Krishna happily playing. Krishna is undisturbed. For Krishna, it was just an adventure. For his parents, it was definitely not an adventure. We'll read a little description from what Putana looked like so we can understand like the intensity of the emotions that Krishna's parents experienced. It said that the long hair on her head was scattered all over her body. Her fallen body extended upon 12 miles and smashed all the trees to pieces. And everyone was struck with wonder upon seeing this gigantic body. Her teeth appeared just like plows, and her nostrils appeared just like mountain caves. Her breast appeared like small hills, and her hair was vast reddish bush. Her eye sockets appeared like blind wells, and her 2 thighs appeared like 2 banks of a river. Her 2 hands appeared like 2 strongly constructed bridges, and her abdomen seemed like a dried up lake. All the coward men and women were struck with fear. And the tumultuous sound of falling shocked their brains and ears and made their hearts beating strong. So for Krishna, as we said, it was just an adventure. However, for the whole community, it was a big trauma. So because they are very devout and because they have extreme faith in what we call dharma, what is not only religion, but what is the right way of living, they decide that now, especially Mother Yashoda feels like now they have to do something to protect Krishna. So as a coward community, they have a lot of faith in the power of the cows. So the first thing that they do with Krishna, which Krishna usually protests against, is they bathe Krishna with cow dung. So I'm not sure if anyone has experienced being bathed in cow dung, but it's quite an experience. I mean, some of you might have had cow urine or maybe cow dung soap, which has actually been proven is very antibacterial, antifungal, a wonderful skincare product. But Krishna did not necessarily experience all of those things. He just experienced his mother bathing him in cow dung, washing him in cow urine. And then after that, they decided that Mother Yashoda felt that they need to chant names of Vishnu. And if they chant the names of Vishnu, then Krishna will be protected. Because it said, when we chant names of Vishnu, then there is no chance or there's no influence of any form of witchcraft or any form of any inauspiciousness. So they chanted these beautiful prayers, which I'd like to also share with you. So Mother Yashoda leading the other ladies of the village, we call them the gopis, the cowherd maidens, they chanted, "My dear Krishna, may the Lord who is known as Aja protect your legs. May Lord Maniman protect your knees. May Lord Yagya protect your thighs. May Lord Achyuta protect your upper waist. May Lord Hayagriva protect your abdomen. May Lord Keshava protect your heart. May Lord Isha protect your chest. May Lord Surya protect your neck. And may Lord Vishnu protect your arms. May Lord Urukruma protect your face. May Lord Ishvara protect your head. May Lord Chakradhara protect your front. May Lord Gadara protect your back. May Lord Madhusudana, who carries a bow in his hand, protect your right side. May Lord Agyana protect your left side. May Lord Urugaya with his conch shell protect you on all sides. May the personality of Godred Upendra protect you from above. May Lord Trakashaya protect you on the ground. May Lord Haladar protect you from all sides. May the personality of Godhead known as Rishikesh protect all your senses. May Lord Narayan protect your life bearers. May the Lord Svetpadvipa Narayan protect the core of your heart. May Lord Yogeshvara protect your mind. May Lord Vriksha protect your intelligence, and may the Supreme Personality of Godhead protect your soul. While you are playing, may Lord Govinda protect you from all sides. When you are sleeping, may Lord Madhava protect you from all danger. When you are walking, may the Lord of Vaikuntha protect you from falling down. When you are sitting, may Lord Narayan give you all protection. And while you are eating, may the Lord of all sacrifices give you all protection. So beautiful prayers offered by Mother Yashoda and the other ladies. I think what is fascinating about these prayers is we might feel as parents that we also pray for the protection of our children. But if we read these prayers of Mother Yashoda, we can see why she is the ultimate mother, and why she's the perfection of motherhood. If we compare her praise to maybe our praise, we see how complete her praise are and how deep her praise are. She's thinking of all the aspects of Krishna and thinking how she can call on specific forms of God, of Vishnu, to protect him. So after the gopis and Mother Yashoda had gone through the rituals, they recite the prayers, they had bathed in the cow dung, Mother Yashoda just picks up Krishna, and she now feels he's safe because she's chanted the Vishnu mantras, and she also just breastfed him. Now the cowherd men who were out, they return and they see this very huge and actually grotesque body of Putana, and then they decide that because it was the custom of the day, they decide that this body now needs to be cut up and it needs to be burned. Again, I do find this a bit disturbing, the image, but that is what they did. And now the fascinating thing is, it says that this was happening outside of the village and they were burning this body, but inside the villagers noticed that there was a very pleasant smell. So they say it smelled like aguru, which is a very special type of wood, which when you burn it, it actually has a very aromatic smell to it. So everyone was wondering, where is this wonderful smell coming from? Now, if any of us have had the experience of being somewhere where they cremate bodies, you know that the smell of burning flesh is not really something that we usually find very pleasant. It's actually like a very, very strong smell. But when Putana's body was burning, it actually had a very attractive smell. So they were wondering why this has happened. And it is said it happened because when Putana was killed by Krishna, she had become purified. And her body had become so purified that when it was burnt, it actually had a fragrant smell to it. So that is the power of Krishna. Although he killed her, in his killing, it was also auspicious. And we see that this shows how Krishna is all good. Whatever he does, the outcome will be extremely auspicious and beneficial for everyone. We see that Putana is coming. She's coming to kill Krishna. But Krishna sees, although her intention is to kill her, he sees the affectionate act. He sees that she comes in the guise of a mother. He sees that moment when she looks at him, where she's got motherly affection. He sees that when she picks him up, she does so very gently. He sees that she has kept him on his lap. And for that reason, when he kills her, she's completely purified. And it's said that she does not only attain liberation, because we know whenever Krishna kills a demon, so for instance, Krishna, when he was Ramachandra, he killed Ravana. So we know that whenever any demon is killed by Krishna, the demon receives liberation. Because as we said, Krishna, whatever he does, it creates auspiciousness. But for Putana, it is even more beneficial because of that moment of affection she had. She not only gets liberated, but Putana gets the opportunity to actually be a nursemaid or something like a mother to Krishna in the future. So she goes to another planet and she becomes an actual mother or a nurse to Krishna. And I think what is very significant about this is that we can see that Krishna reciprocated with a drop of Putana's affection by giving her the opportunity to really act as his mother. Now for us, we hopefully are working on having more than just a drop of affection for Krishna. We don't approach Krishna, with bad intention, and then also, within that, show some affection, but we actually, on the path of bhakti, we are working on approaching Krishna with good intention, and then also with affectionate action. So we can have a lot of faith that Krishna will greatly reciprocate with us. Now, but what is interesting in this story is we know that in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the state of mind that we have in our past life, it will determine our next birth. So now a good question is, what was Putana thinking in her previous birth? What led her to becoming a witch? But a witch that has then a very intriguing interaction with Krishna. What was the cause? And as it is with most of these fascinating stories you found in Krishna book, there is another story. There's a backstory. So we find the backstory in another scripture, and the scripture might not be so well known to all of us. It's called the Garga Samhita. So in the Garga Samhita, we find that in her previous birth, she was actually a very aristocratic person. She was a princess, and her name was Ratnamala. And Ratnamala was the daughter of a king, and this king was Bali. Now, the fascinating thing about Bali Maharaj, and this goes to show that you can literally find, devotees in all spheres of life and in all social groups, is Bali Maharaj is a demon. Bali Maharaj is a demon, but at the same time, Bali Maharaj is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. Now, for those of us that might not know, Prahlad Maharaj is known as one of the greatest devotees of Lord Vishnu. And Prahlad Maharaj was actually, or Prahlad Maharaj's devotion was the cause for Lord Vishnu taking a very powerful form called Lord Nrsingadev, which is a manifestation of Lord Krishna's desire to protect his devotee. So on the one hand, Bali Maharaj is a demon, or in the family of demons. On the other hand, he's got this connection with Prahlad Maharaj. And because he's got this connection with Prahlad Maharaj, he will always ultimately be favored by Vishnu. So Bali Maharaj, as we said, was the demon king. And because he had this connection with Prahlad Maharaj, Vishnu actually had a desire to somehow liberate him. So Vishnu always coming up with very ingenious plans, always knowing, how to approach an individual to bring out their surrender and to bring out their devotion. He takes the form of Vamanadev. So Vamanadev is a dwarf, but because it's Krishna, even though he's a dwarf, he is the most charming dwarf we can imagine. And he's a dwarf, and he's also a brahmachari. So he is like a renunciate monk. And Bali Maharaj, although he was in the family of demons, he was a king, and he was very cultured. And in his culture, it was the norm that if monks came, you would always give them alms. Whatever they asked of you, you would reciprocate for them, you would support them, because they are seen as the saints of the society. So Vamanadev came to Bali Maharaj, and he asked him for only 3 steps of land. We have to make the story a little bit short. When Ratnamala who would be Putana in the future, and Bali Maharaj's daughter, when she saw him, she thought that he was the most charming young boy she'd ever seen. When she saw him, she immediately felt like she wanted him as her son. She felt that if she had a son like him, then she would give him her breast milk, and in that way her heart would be fully satisfied. So immediately when she saw him, she had that feeling. So for those of us that are mothers, or maybe you work with children, you might have also had this experience when you see a child, and the child is so sweet, and it just captures your heart and your mind to such an extent that you actually feel like, I would really love to have such a child. This child is extraordinary. If I could have such a child, I would really fulfill my need to be a mother and to nurture and to care for a child that's extraordinary. So she immediately felt this spontaneously. Now, because Vamanadev is Krishna, when the moment she had that desire, he noted this. she's desiring to love me and to care for me as a mother. So he noted this, and he actually, at that moment, immediately when she had the desire, he gave her that benediction. He decided that I will reciprocate with this desire that you have, and I will give you the blessing of being like a mother to me. However, as we said, Vamanadev, being very tricky, like we know Krishna is like, if anyone is going to, if anyone is going to fool you, it's Krishna. So being quite of a tricky character, he asks Bali Maharaj, the only thing that I want is 3 steps of land. And remembering that he is a very tiny dwarf, Bali Maharaj says, of course, I'll give you 3 steps of land. But then he smiles, and when he takes his first steps, he starts expanding. And it says he expands so much that in one step, he basically covers the whole material universe. So he has stepped, and we've got like according to the Vedic paradigm, we've got like 3 main spheres. We've got the earthly realm, we've got the hellish realm, and then we've got the heavenly realm. So he has already covered everything with his first step. With his second step, he actually starts to pierce the covering of the whole material universe. And now he wants to take a third step. And Bali Maharaj, as we can assume, has become quite worried now because this little dwarf personality has, in a couple of moments, expanded himself to something which is the size of the universe. So now he's got a problem to give him that third step. So Bali Maharaj is intelligent though. So then when Vamanadev asked him, where am I going to place my third step? Because you offered me, you guaranteed me 3 steps. He bows down and he says, place your third step on my head. So that's a sign of complete surrender. You know that if we bow down to someone, we place our head at their feet, we are saying, I surrender to you. So Bali Maharaj does that. And then Vamanadev steps on his head. And of course, it's glorious for Bali Maharaj. But then after that, he's not a king anymore. He's going to become a servant of Vamanadev. Now, when Ratnamala sees this, she feels outraged because she feels that her father has now been humiliated. Her father, who's the king of the demons, has now been humiliated. He's had to bow his head down to Vamanadev, and she also feels that Vamanadev has cheated her father. So then she actually starts feeling that she wants to take revenge on Vamanadev. Although earlier she had felt this great affection, she decides that actually she wants to kill Vamanadev. And that becomes a very prominent desire within her heart and her mind. And that combination of desires and the combination of the benediction that Vamanadev or Krishna had given her, that she would be his mother or act like his mother, that results in her being born as Putana. So we see it's very fascinating. And although she started off with this very pure intention, because of her need to take revenge, because of her very, very strong feeling of anger and antagonism towards Vamanadev, who is Krishna, she ends up becoming a witch. We can see that her very intense emotions, we can say to some extent, poisoned her heart. Because if we think about a witch, we think about someone whose heart is poisoned, who is almost inherently evil. So that was our story, the story of how Putana. I would like to say how Putana gets liberated. I think that's the better naming of it, how Putana gets liberated. And that story I wanted to use for us to think more about this archetype, which is the archetype of the witch. So if we look at the idea of the archetype, it comes from Jung, for those of us that are familiar with psychology. And the archetype is this idea that there are these universal patterns, but psychological patterns that we can all go through. And each one of those has specific themes, and they also have specific lessons. And a very important part of the concept of the archetype is there's 2 sides to each archetype. So archetype has what we call a shadow side, which is the dark side of the archetype, but it also has what I would say is the illuminated side. So we could say that is the more integrated and healthy side of the archetype. Now, if we look at the story of Putana, we see the shadow side of this archetype. But of course, they could also be the illuminated side of the archetype. As we all know, or not, maybe we all don't know, but we know that there is this idea of black magic, and it said like Putana was practicing black magic, but there's also the idea of white magic. So I thought it would be interesting for us to just compare a couple of points which illustrate the difference between the different sides of this witch archetype. So the first point, I'm very sad that I can't share my presentation because I had a presentation prepared, but I hope at least we can hear some of it. So the first point is that in the witch archetype, we can have someone that's just mysterious. Now, we all know people that are mysterious, but what we see of Putana is she's not mysterious, but she's deceptive. She's a shape shifter. While she is one thing and she has one intention, she presents herself as something completely else. So we can see that being mysterious is not necessarily a bad thing, but we can see that if that mysteriousness turns into being deceptive, then we've become false. We've become somewhat of a shapeshifter. And I think if we think about this, I mean, obviously we all might have seen like some fantasy film or read some fantasy book, and we know what a shapeshifter is, but we can also ask ourselves, like, am I not a shapeshifter, not maybe externally, but internally? Like, am I masquerading as something which I'm not for a certain particular purpose that I have? So I think it's an interesting idea. Am I being mysterious, or am I actually being deceptive? Then another, I think, theme here for the witch archetype is power. So if we have a healthy witch archetype, the power can manifest into them being a healer. So we know that all over the world, there are especially women who are known for healing abilities. And it might be women that heal with herbs. It might be, women that actually heal on a more subtle level, working with energy-based medicine. But we know healers, and there's often something mystical about those healers too. And they are channeling the power that they have, but they are using it for a good cause. Now, we also know that, especially if you live, say, like I do in South Africa, there are people, even now, there's actually a lot of people who practice witchcraft and who actually use it for evil. So we can say that they are also sometimes make potions, and they also have spells, etc. And this is very real. If you live in Africa, it's real. It's really not just an idea or like a myth. But what they are doing is they're using the power, but as a destructive force. And we also see in stories, we see this manifesting as the evil mother. If we think about, for instance, Snow White, her mother, her stepmother, was also seen as a witch. So very interesting, the evil mother. And sometimes because this unfortunately happens, if someone has a mother, which is very cruel, they might even, describe their mother as a witch. That's quite a common thing. And if you say, my mother is a witch, then everyone will immediately know what you're talking about. Now, another very fascinating theme for the witch is dealing with social tension. Now, if we look at the story of Putana, what is fascinating is Kamsa is living in great fear of Krishna. So we've got social tension. Kamsa had imprisoned Krishna's parents, and he actually had killed all their previous children because he was living in so much fear of the prediction that one of their children would kill him. So this is definitely a situation where there's social tension. Now, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they have had Krishna born and they're living far away, but still Kamsa is living in fear of Krishna, and Krishna's parents are living in fear of Kamsa. So what does Kamsa do? Kamsa doesn't actually go and deal with the situation himself. They don't go and they don't talk things out. Like, if we have tension in a community, that's the wise thing. Let's go and address these problems. But what Kamsa does is he sends Putana. So he makes her responsible to deal with this issue. And then what happens is Putana gets killed. And we know, ultimately it's suspicious for her, but Putana gets killed. And this is a very common theme with the archetype of the witch, is scapegoating. So placing, there is social tension, and then finding someone else who can be held responsible and then can be blamed for the situation. Now, if we would look at what would be like the healthier way to deal with this, because this theme is there, dealing with social tension is like an integral part of the witch archetype. It would be to identify the disease, the root cause, and to deal with it. And that also takes courage. If we think about if there is a social issue, often if we have social issues, the tendency would be that we don't want to talk about it. Everyone's denying it, or everyone's maybe talking about it, but not openly. So being able to have that courage and going to the roots of something and then dealing with it is often difficult. And the people that do that often also, might get not scapegoat, but there's definitely a chance that people will be questioning them and talking about them. But actually doing that is very important. If there's social tension, someone has to go to the roots of it, and someone has to have the courage to deal with it. Now, another common theme is a person, especially a woman, who is operating outside of social conventions. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, being outside of social conventions is not a bad thing. But what we see, the dark side is, as with Putana, is she's actually ostracized. So that's definitely like the shadow side of the witch archetype. If we're not just operating in a way a bit alternative, we maybe not, conforming so much to social norms and conventions, but we're actually at the level where we are ostracized. So we see how this manifested in Europe. It was from the 13th century onward, right into the 19th century, with the witch hunts. We see, how so many women were falsely accused of witchcraft. Of course, there's always a chance that there were women who were really practicing sorcery or maybe some other questionable practices. But I mean, hundreds of women, maybe even thousands of women were persecuted. Many of them were actually just healers, and they were, labeled as witches. And then they were ostracized, and we know that unfortunately many of them were then burnt at the stake. And this is also very interesting. Like, why were they burnt? They could have hanged them, they could have killed them in so many ways, but they were burnt at the stake. Because there's this idea that if you burn something, it becomes purified. Because we know that in Europe it would be the Christians who at that point in time were persecuting, the so-called witches. So there's this idea that you burn in hell, and then somehow those flames are purifying. So if you burn something, somehow it purifies. Maybe not them, but it's kind of like purifying for the community. So we see the interesting thing with Putana, she's definitely an individual who's kind of ostracized. She's definitely outside of social norms, because if we look at the story a bit closer, we see we're in a society where women are almost always connected to the family. Women are either with their husband, or they're with their brother, or they're with their father, or they're with their son. We see that when women move around in the society, they move around in groups, they're with other women. But we see that's not how Putana operates. Putana is called as an individual by Kamsa, and she's sent by herself to go deal, with Krishna. And she shows up in Vrindavan by herself, and no one questions that. So it's very interesting. We can see that she was definitely operating very much outside of conventions. And then what happens to her is her body does get burnt after she's killed. But of course, the only difference is that instead of her needing to be purified by the fire, instead of the people thinking that they should take the decision and take the law in their own hands and burn her, Krishna purifies her. So I think that's a very, very valuable point in the story. Like, are we supposed to be purifying people, or should we leave it to Krishna to purify? Okay, so I just wanted to touch on maybe one more point. So with the witch archetype, we also see that Putana is untamed. If we read that description of her appearance, she looks very wild. Like, breasts like mountain peaks and like teeth like plows, and very, very untamed. If you also now think about, given the culture, her appearance, she's very untamed. Now, if we're untamed, it will definitely, or it can potentially cause a bit of issues for ourselves and for others. Because if we say untamed, it's like, almost like having a wild animal somewhere. So, I mean, wild animals are very beautiful to watch from a distance, but if you've had like a close-up interaction of a wild animal, you realize that it's actually a very dangerous situation. So what a healthier expression of being untamed is just being more independent. And there's a big difference. Being independent means you are in control of your own energy and you're using it constructively. Being untamed means neither are you in control of your energy, neither is anyone else. But we can see how, although that might look attractive, it can actually get us and others into problem. Okay, I just wanted to share two more themes. I find this fascinating, as we mentioned, especially if we look at, say, the European like witch hunts. Often people, though identified it as witches, were actually healers. So the healthy expression of this archetype is using energies, the abilities, the insight, the wisdom for healing. And in Ayurveda, there's actually many rituals in which you offer prayers to Putana or to Putanas to protect babies. So that's also there. But we see that she must have had some knowledge, of herbs, of potions, but she used it to poison Krishna. Now, again, I think most of us probably, we don't have the skill or the knowledge to actually make poison and to go and poison people. Are we not sometimes poisoning with our words or with our actions? If we think about something as gossip can be so poisoning. And if you are someone that is more intuitive and has insight into people's nature, you'll be able to see more about them. They might even reveal more about them to you. And then you could use that information to help and to heal, or you could use that information to actually, poison others and then ultimately poison yourself. And now the last point I wanted to share, which is a theme here, is we see that Putana was feared. She was very much feared, although initially she charmed everyone. In the end, she was feared, and then we see, as we said, because of this form that she had, her body was cut up and she was burnt. So this is a very strong theme, the theme of this power. This power is untamed. This power is outside of convention, and then this power creates a lot of fear. Now, that is different from, the illuminated side of this archetype. We have someone who is mysterious, but who uses that power to heal, who is independent and maybe does not conform, but we would say is more individualistic rather than isolated, and who is maybe connecting rather to a higher energy. Now, if we have a personality, if we have a woman that is operating a lot in this archetype or with this archetype, she might not be understood and she might not be easily controlled, and that might be a challenge for her, but that is different from being feared. And we see the moment a person is going to make that switch, where instead of using their power for good, they're going to use their power in some forceful way, they're going to use their power in a poisoning way, they will be feared. And the moment there's fear, we know that when we act out of fear, and we don't act out of compassion, we don't act out of love, then it never leads to a good result for either us or for others. So the last thing I wanted to share is what I think is 4 interesting lessons. I think there's a lot we can learn from this archetype, but 4 main themes that stood out for me as lessons. So the one is the theme of purification and transformation, which I think is often overlooked, in the story of Putana. Because if we think about where she started, when she is the daughter of Bali Maharaj, when she's Ratnamala, she is actually, in the family of demons. And then she has this seed of a desire to have Krishna as her son, to play that role of an affectionate mother. But then at the same time, she wants to take revenge of Krishna because she feels he has insulted her father. So that need to take revenge, that rage, actually kind of to a great extent becomes more prominent in our mind. It becomes the most prominent desire, in our mind, which then results in her becoming a witch in her next life. But then the story does not end there, because there was that affection. She goes through a process. She has to become a witch, which is not nice. It's like you can imagine like being a witch, having that form, having that mentality. We know when we are just angry, when we are feeling envious, when we have been unkind. We know what that feels like. It's not a good space to be in. It's very heavy. I mean, I think if you are, experiencing any of those intense emotions towards others, you suffer the most. So she has, taken birth in this form, which is definitely a very heavy burden to carry. And then she actually goes through this pastime of trying to kill Krishna. And it's interesting that even though Krishna has this opportunity to stop the whole pastime, there's this moment where she looks at him and she knows he's God. I cannot kill him. But Krishna does not actually stop it there. He lets her whole destiny play out. He lets her pick him up. He lets her try to kill him, and then he kills her. And that whole process, that difficult experience that she goes through, then transforms her. And then she sheds that very heavy form that she's taken on. She sheds that form, and she just becomes, she sheds that form and she just becomes the mother, the nurse, the caretaker. And this is beautiful. I really wanted to share it with you. There's this beautiful statue that I found, a bronze statue, and it is a statue of Putana holding Krishna. And it's a statue where Putana has two parts. Like Putana is lying on her back, and this is like the demon Putana. And then another Putana is sitting up, and this is this beautiful goddess Putana who is nurturing Krishna on her breast. And it says that it shows that this transformation process that she's gone through, she shed the demon part in her, she shed the darkness, and now she's just, she's really stepping into the light and just being the mother. So that is one common theme. And another one, which I think we haven't really explored, is alternative routes to spirituality. Like if you think about Putana's story, it's so alternative. She's not a saint. She's not, we often find in Mahabharata, you find lots of ladies that are queens and are princesses. She's neither of those. She's not someone that goes somewhere and, practice meditation for a long time. She's not even someone that, goes to a guru and learns scripture. She's got such an alternative route. She is a lady, like a single lady, who, starts working for an evil king and then gets liberated by Krishna. Like if we look at it through that lens, what an alternative, route did she take? What an alternative person, she is. But in the end, she comes out so glorious. And the last point, which is connected it, is, and I think this can give us a lot of faith and hope, is that Krishna seeks out our devotion. Because it is said that in that moment where Ratnamala desired to be the mother of Vamanadev, Krishna saw that. And then immediately Krishna thought, how can I now fame this flame of devotion? How can I arrange a situation that she can become my devotee? So it's interesting. Krishna took note of the fact that she also wants to kill him. And he allowed her to also, take on a life which allowed that to happen. But Krishna wasn't really concerned with that. Krishna was concerned with, here is that little spark of devotion. And if we look at the story in a different way, we can see that actually the whole pastime was arranged just so that that desire that Ratnamala had could be facilitated. The whole story of Putana is helping Ratnamala to connect with that desire to have Krishna as her son. And there is also even like an alternative reading of the pastime where it is said that at that moment where Putana picked up Krishna and she was holding him in her arms, even at that moment, she actually changed her mind. At that moment, she thought that I was sent here by Kamsa to kill Krishna. My intention was to kill Krishna. I thought I wanted to kill Krishna, but now that I've seen Krishna, I don't want to kill him. But I know he's the supreme and I know he'll kill me. So I'll offer my life. I'm here already. I'll offer my life to Krishna. So it said that even there, she actually made the change. And she knew, he was going to kill her, but she decided, no, I'm gonna give everything to Krishna. So we see Krishna seeks out our devotion, and also Krishna will bring out our devotion. If we just allow ourselves to come closer to him, then because of who Krishna is, he will bring it out. Even if we are a witch, even if externally we are a witch, even if it seems that, we have so much darkness, even if it seems that we are so evil, it doesn't really matter. None of those externals can actually inhibit devotion, and none of those externals can inhibit Krishna's love to reach us. So here's the demon, the witch, the dark-hearted person, but when she sees Krishna, her heart melts. So that, dear ladies, unfortunately, I can't see everyone, but that is what I wanted to share with you today. And I think if I remember correctly, I'm not sure if we have breakout rooms now or we just have a discussion.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, Brajrani, you want to take it?
Okay, I can. Thank you so much. Thank you. The backstory, this Ratnamala backstory is so delicious. Thank you. I'm always, these demons that Krishna liberates and takes back to him is always fascinating to me, and to hear this full sort of sense of this story, I really beautiful, and thank you for such an engaging storytelling. There were notes going on of people just captivated by your storytelling. I think we're at a time when I think we'll just, rather than break out into groups, and we're a small number of people here, we'll just jump into questions, and we like to start with the most interesting and deepest questions, which come from our dearest beloved Rukmini Walker. Rukmini, say some things, ask the question, get us going.
Wow, thank you so much. Saradiya, Rasa, this was just so brilliant and so engaging, and what can I say? You're my most favorite storyteller right now. It's just fantastic. And so many things came up. I mean, I feel like we could be in conversation for hours, but I'm thinking, here she is. She's outside of the social convention, which was such a really brilliant thing to bring up. And I think, so in our language today, she's an outlier. She's outside of social convention. And we hear so much in our temples about how, women should be protected. Women should be protected by a father or a husband or a son. And sometimes, you just look around the room and, okay, where's the father? Where's the husband? Where's the son? And so many of us are really like that, living outside of social convention. Maybe we'd like a husband, but there is no husband. Or maybe the father was abusive, or maybe the son, this or that. So I'm just wondering, so many things I could bring up, but where is that? What is the, so that's a dangerous place to be an outlier, to be outside of social convention. So what's the taming? What's the transformative force? Where's the protection if we are living outside of social convention? And so many more questions I could ask, but why don't we start with that? Oops. Now, where is the protection? Where's the transformation? Where's the magical herb? Where's the magical herb protection? It was so interesting that you said that in Ayurveda, they have prayers for protecting children, calling out to Putana. So where is the taming transformative protection? Let me just ask you that. Oh, is she frozen? Did we lose her?
Yeah, we lost
her.
her. Yeah, Rukmini, you might have to answer your own question.
Let's see if she comes back. Let's see if she comes back. But yeah, you know, and I was thinking that, isn't it beautiful? Like we think, well, maybe I am just such an outlier and I'm outside of convention, and where's the protection? But yet, you know, this other seed that she planted, which is the core seed of Krishna hearing our innermost desire, I think is so super profound and powerful. So maybe, you know, maybe I don't even have the protection I wish I had, or maybe I am a wild woman and I don't want any protection, but somehow or other, Krishna is hearing and seeing my innermost desire of my deepest heart. And maybe I do have to go through some negative stuff, reactive stuff, maybe some burning of the heart. But that just that idea that Krishna is seeing my deeper, most innermost desire to love and to have him, even though I might have to work through so much junk, so many brambles to get there. Yeah. Maybe, does this bring up anything for all of you, since we lost Saradiya temporarily? Hopefully she'll be back, but what does this bring up for you guys?
I think to me, Hare Krishna, lovely to be with you all. To me, I think it's just that with women, you know, often women become the scapegoats. You know, it's always the female, the witch, you know, witches are always, you know, portrayed as female, you know, with the hat and the broomstick. So it's just that idea that we all have shadow aspects, you know, light and the dark, and it's just realizing, actually for me what I took was, you know, everything, all our habits, characters can all be used in good and bad. You know, medicine, you know, herbs that could be used to cure somebody could be used to kill somebody equally, you know. So it's just that understanding that, obviously not being a scapegoat, but understanding the dualities in life. And actually you made a very profound point that maybe Krishna is kind of, I don't know, leading us astray sometimes, because we need to learn that life lesson or lesson somewhere, you know. So we end up doing things that are probably not sometimes in our actual nature to do so, but it's just that deep down knowing that Krishna knows your inner desires. He knew that Putana at the end had that maternal urge, and she, you know, deserved to be purified and kind of cleansed of her sins, so to speak, which he killed, but then also gave her that liberation at the end. So it's just knowing that life sometimes could get tough, and we may do things that are A, that we don't want to do, and B, are not in our true nature, but deep down Krishna always has a plan. I think
so beautiful. So beautiful. And you know what you're saying, what that brings up for me is this idea of, you know, maybe taking the wrong herb, you know, because not every medicine in the pharmacy is going to be good for me, right? So I have to gain knowledge of who I am, knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, knowledge of the beautiful Bhakti scriptures, so that I know which herb to ingest, right? Because I may think, oh, this herb is going to save me, but maybe it's going to kill me. And so, you know, how do I bring out that illuminated side rather than that shadow side? Yeah. So what else? Does anybody else have any thoughts on this? Beautiful. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
How do I know? You know, I walk into the pharmacy and there's morphine, there's phenol or whatever it's called. There's this one, that one, and the other one. Which one's going to kill me? And which one's going to heal me? How do I know? How, you know, especially if I am a bit of an outlier outside of social convention. I do kind of walk the streets of New York sometimes alone. And how do I, you know, how do I know? What do you got? What does it bring up for you guys? Since we lost our great storyteller, we're going to have to wing this here. What do you think?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. devotees. Please accept
Sadhana.
my blessings. Yes, hello. Yeah, for me, I know when I think of transformation, and then this idea of being in an outlier place, I think that in life generally, people feel that kind of outlierish at some points in their life. It's not it can be a situational thing where somebody has gone through a lot of trauma and has lived that way. It could be momentarily, it could be attending a family event or stepping into a new place where don't know anybody. So there's that feeling, and so as part of life, we're constantly being, that tug of war with Maya is constantly on. So the transformation can only take place when we're in, I think for me, is when we can see Krishna, when Krishna does come. So for me in the story, for example, is when she sees her father surrendering to Lord Krishna. She has a desire, but that desire is so strong that she doesn't see Krishna when he is there. And so that, that having those strong desires, the familial desires for family and bonds, is so overwhelming that sometimes when the Lord appears, we don't see him. So in that way, Krishna just took her on a journey so that she could appreciate him and fall in love, in the form that she wanted to fall in love. Maybe she wasn't ready to accept him as Ramadev. So I think that was kind of like that. So for me, it's like opening the heart. So when we see, we're ready to see, right? That's kind of that state of being. So, thank you.
Beautiful. My goodness. Krishna took her on a journey to love. Wow. Sorry.
Saradiya, Rasa is back again. It looks like you fell off for a moment. And maybe, does anyone have questions?
Should I restate my question now that Saradiya's back? And maybe
you can restate your question.
Okay, Saradiya, you there? See you. She's there?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, I'm here, but
she's in and out. So maybe we should keep chatting. She's getting garbled, but Dee has a beautiful question. Should we be afraid to be outliers? Well,
very valuable.
Saradiya, it's very mumbled. We can't really hear you.
So
Okay.
Let's see. Would someone like to toss this ball around? Dee's question. Should we be afraid to be outliers? Should we embrace it? What do you guys think? Let's discuss that. Should I go inside social convention just out of fear? Or, yeah, it's a great question. Anybody want to talk about that?
I don't feel like I have much of a choice. I don't know. I feel like this life, being an outlier, is, and I just turned 60 this past week. So, and this is this life. So I have to embrace it and figure out how to do that.
Well, Brajarani, you could pretend to be someone else just out of fear. You could pretend to be someone other than who you are, and that would be going into the shadow side of social convention. If you're really outside of social convention and in your actual true self. You want to respond to that?
And it's, I will respond to it, but it may not be a satisfying response in that I have fortunately found in my life that that really isn't a choice that feels like it's an option for me, to be other than I am, or to put on a complete mask and live a different life just has never felt like an option that I could take. I think that's a transcendental grace for me. That I always, that the next step is always the one in front of me, and it is, and the other step looks like it could be another step, but it never feels like it's something I could actually take. So that's I think a fortune for me that way. So
That's your authenticity. I noticed that Champak put up her hand.
so did Kamini. Did as well first, actually.
Yeah, so please, Kamini, you go first and then I'll respond.
And Michelle has her hand up.
I had put my hand down because I saw Saradiya Rasa came back. I just wanted to briefly say that sometimes you just want to be yourself without it having to be such a big deal. But then if, as a woman, we get sort of a lot more attention if we're maybe strong or different, or, you know, and all sorts of labels come, and maybe not every woman always has the energy to do that. And so they shrink a little bit. It just came to my mind.
Beautiful.
Sadly, tragically, because it's like they don't feel like, or don't have the energy just to sort of take on the mantle to represent all women. And I would imagine that this might be the case if, you know, maybe you're of another skin color, and anything you say or do, you get such a focus that you're supposed to represent, you know, everybody from your culture. So, and I feel like in this modern culture, that doesn't seem to apply so much to generally men, and certainly not to Caucasian men.
Champak, are you fielding these questions? Do you want to raise your point?
And I'm the question fielder today.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yes. I think Michelle might have. Michelle, do you want to speak?
Hare Krishna, friends. Thank you for having me. My first time fully joining in. I think it was very beautiful to mention the dark, because a huge part of my path to healing was coming from understanding, as Srila Prabhupada says, you can't look at the chest and forget the back. You can't look at the back and forget the front. The light and the dark are one and the same. And if we want to understand, ultimately, it's all for a gift. It's all for transformation. It's all for acquiring of knowledge. We have to be able to sit in that dark to be able to find the light, just like the light has the element of darkness in it. And so to see that so out there spoken of, the dark and this dark character, but what does she have to present? What lessons can we learn from her? How can we look at another person's dark and find the light that they have in it? Or how can we look at their dark and bring light to it? For me personally, Krishna led me through this path of going to all of the dark that I experienced in my life, and to learn the lesson in each dark moment. And because I did that, then I found forgiveness for all of the dark, and I learned the lessons, and then it all became a blessing. So there was no light, there was no dark. And then that just allows me to authentically show up and say, either I experienced this dark, but it's okay because this is what I learned, or this is the dark in me, but it's okay because it's who I am, the path that brought me to this. And so now I can just authentically show up as me, the servant of Krishna that he put me here to be, and humbly own that. Thank you for your association.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Champak.
I was just thinking, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that it's better to perform our own duty imperfectly than to perform another person's duty perfectly. And so this question of should we embrace being outliers or try to be someone who we're not, Krishna is telling us don't try to be someone who we're not, that it's not actually the way to him. but that the way to him is to accept who we are with all of our imperfections and to do our duty in this life. So I was just thinking, you know, I was thinking like, and also who you are can change at different times in your life. And what your social position is can change at different times in your life. So that's where we seek guidance of our mentors on the path to help us navigate, okay, what phase of life am I in? What is my situation that I'm in at this time? And how can I best serve at this time, which might be very different 10 years from now.
Beautiful. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. Thank you.
Saradiya, Rasa, are you with us?
My hand's up, Rajarani, if no one else's hand is up.
Okay. Just wanted to-
Saradiya Rasa was commenting in the chat in case we're not able to hear her.
Yes, I did. I saw that. Yes.
Why don't you
Yes.
read it, Rajarani?
It says that's a very important point, Kamini. I think this is why this is why it's key that we, as Vaisheshika Prabhu says, encourage the heck out of each other.
Beautiful. And I love what each one of you has been sharing. I love what Champak, what you were just saying. I love Michelle, what you were just saying about looking at the dark and bringing light and learning the lesson. And you know, I'm thinking of, yeah, going through it and really truly observing it, to dwell with it. There's something that I've been learning. There's something called ruler. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. This is about dealing with emotions. And the acronym is ruler. And you might want to look at this or think about it. So the R is for recognize, you know, being able to recognize what emotions we're having, and try to, then the U is to try to understand what is that I'm feeling, and then to name it, to label it. The L is for label, to be able to name or label that emotion that I'm feeling. And then the E is for express it, and being able to express it in appropriate ways. And then the R is for to be able to regulate that emotion. And so what this brings up for me is that, because on that question of where is the protection if I am an outlier, if I am outside of social convention, where is the protection for me? And I believe the true answer to that is the protection is in dharma. The protection is because there's a Sanskrit root connected with dharma, which is ritu, and it means to do the right thing. So if I can always like be finding that way of doing the right thing, and learning what is right. There's this beautiful quote from Abraham Lincoln where he said, to do what's right as God gives us the understanding to know what is right. So I think if we're exploring the path of bhakti, to be able to gain that knowledge, and then the realized knowledge to know what is right in this moment, you know, to learn what is dharma, what is the right thing to do, and what is the right thing for me to do in this very moment. So those are some thoughts I was having. Yeah.
Beautiful. Saradiya Rasa is having sound problems, so she's posting, but she can't speak. So she said, I think an overlooked part of this pastime is that it's actually about Putana becoming a devotee.
Isn't that beautiful?
Which is
So,
really, really beautiful. It
so
is
beautiful.
yeah.
So like, you know, we might just see so much Putana in ourselves, and so much, you know, so many false motivations or this or that and the other thing. But then Krishna is seeing that inner seed, that inner core, that yes, this person wants to take a step toward me somehow or other, even though maybe it's 10, 20, 30 steps backwards, right? But Krishna is accepting that intention, you know, and yeah.
And I love the fact that Putana, I mean, she started off being like he's really attractive. I really want to, I want to serve to, oh my God, I want to, like, he's an ass, I want to kill, to back to like, I'm doing my job. The guy sent me off to kill him. And then like, oh no, I don't want to, I want to help him. I mean, like, we're like that. Like my head goes back and forth from one moment to another. It's like,
yeah, maybe, maybe you feel that about your own child, or maybe you feel that about your own mother or your own husband or your own partner or your own friend, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, right? So isn't that just the world we're in? I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. And then just trying to find that core of essential dharma within that. Who is this person intrinsically? Who am I intrinsically? How can I take these steps forward to the true identification and authenticity of the true self? That's what, Brajrani, when you were speaking, I was just thinking authenticity, 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 What a shadow it would be for someone as authentic as you, Brajrani, to like try to pose as a, like a socially convention type of a person. It would be totally false. Oh, interesting.
yeah. Didn't get married, didn't have the kids, didn't, just went off, did my own thing. That's just, yeah.
Does anyone, Michelle has her hand up again.
Go, Michelle. Go for it.
We want to hear your wisdom, Michelle.
No, compared to you, I have no wisdom. I'm humbled to be in your presence and association. Two of the very big lessons that I learned recently were my mom had an emergency appendectomy surgery on Thanksgiving. And I went to my altar and I lit a candle and I did incense and I chanted a round of japa. And in that moment, I came to think, who am I to question you and beg you for her life? Who am I to tell you what needs to happen with her? If it's her time, it's her time. And you know that better than me. And it really led to two culminating lessons of an all-knowing, all-powerful, almighty, all-everything entity that needs absolutely nothing decided he needed a me and he needed an each of you. And how incredibly beautiful is that, to sit in that seat of Krishna who needs nothing needed of me, but also Krishna who knows everything. So who am I to ever question him? And from that duality, there's nowhere to sit but in our authentic, this all-knowing, all-powerful, almighty, all-everything entity made me. That authentically makes me, as Champaka said, imperfectly perfect. That owns me to go forth as his servant. But when I act, as you were saying, Rukmini, when I act from that place of ego versus servant, and I am walking as servant, doing what he is guiding me to. So I'm not going to question, is that right or wrong? Is that in the construct or right or wrong? I just know that I'm walking in that conduit path that he made me. And those two things just put me in this line of, I'm who you made me to be. And as Prabhupada said, make me dance.
Wow. Do we have wise women on this platform today or what? Unbelievable. Thank you so much, Michelle. So beautiful. So beautiful.
We have only a few minutes left. Rukmini, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I want to just share with all of you to please join us next month on April 24th if you want to mark your calendars. So a really, really interesting Vaishnavi or woman on the path of bhakti, Her name is Shama Sangita. She does stand-up comedy in Los Angeles. This is what she does. And she's going to speak to us next April 24th about ultimate life hacks from the Bhagavad Gita. So what an engaging title. So if you thought this one was great about Putana, the witch and the wise woman, then please join us next month, all of you, to hear about ultimate life hacks from the Bhagavad Gita on April 24th from Shama Sangita. And thank you all so much for being here. This was so engaging. Thank you, Michelle and Sadhana, Brajarani, Champak, all of you who shared, Kamaniya and Dee. It was so engaging, so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Saradiya, Rasa. We absolutely, speaking for everybody, but speaking for myself, first of all, we absolutely love this. So fix your technology because we want you to come back and we want to hear more archetypes from you. This was fantastic. Saradiya, we love you. Love what you do. Love Sadhvi Sanga. Everybody look up Sadhvi Sanga on their Facebook or on YouTube and watch some great interviews, podcasts.
Saradiya Rasa would like to try to share one last thing. Go for it.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for your patience. My technological difficulties. So I wanted to share this before, and that was just the reason why I called this session The Witch and the Wise Woman. And a lot of what the, I think, very insightful ladies shared ties in with it. And for me, it seemed that, if we all, like someone mentioned, that we all might go through a stage in life. It might not be a prominent theme all life, but most of us will definitely go through a part of our life which we feel like we are the outsider and we are unconventional. And I think then it's important in that, in that experience, that we actually accept it and we embrace it. And